Um, Thank you for coming on to speak with me. First and foremost, for those who are unfamiliar with Albion Byrd and Scandinavian, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, what do you do? Um, Go ahead.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for having me on. It's lovely to talk to you. Yeah, so basically I have always worked in sort of creative mediums. I originally trained as a musician, and that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I played drums and guitar and studied, then moved to London. I was in bands and stuff for years, and just got a bit like disillusioned with the whole thing, really, because it's like anything creative, you put your sort of heart and soul in, and it's very, very difficult to not only make money, but to get people to listen, to get people to notice, and especially you're doing gigs in London for a long time, it takes it out of you. And I split up with the band that I was in. And I was like, well, I just don't have the energy to start this again, And I was like, I just want to sort of quit. And it was a bit sad, really, because from sort of 10 to 29, I was just doing music. Um, but then I got interested in acting and I wanted to change paths. And I was like, oh, I'll try acting instead. That'll be easier. So then I studied acting for a long time, for a couple of years, and got more serious about it. And I, trained again for a few years, and I got an agent, started doing commercials, which was which was good in a way because for an actor, commercials they pay well. So I'd all of a sudden earned a bit of money in a short space of time, way more than I ever did in music over, decades. So I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I got dropped by my agent. And then I moved out of London briefly. But that's a different story. And then came back and then struggled again with sort of creative stuff. Um, and then a few years forward, then the pandemic happened, and I was like, well, why don't I try and combine everything? I can do something myself. I've always really loved audio. So I was like, I can write a story that's just audio. I can do all the voices. I can put loads of music in it, which will keep me happy because I can just sit there and make music. This is cool. I can do it on my own schedule. I can have sort of complete creative control. I think that's what's good about audio. You can do anything you want. There's no financial restrictions. If you want to set it on a spaceship and go to Mars, you can do it really easily. So that's quite freeing when you're writing something. So then I developed this idea of someone. Actually, to preface that, I decided that horror would be a good genre for me to explore because I think that works quite well in audio. You can make it very creepy. Um, so I wanted to do a horror thing, and then it started with this idea of like a man who's just completely isolated, completely alone, and he gets sent murdered corpses that he has to dispose of. And so that was the starting point of the idea. So the themes are around, isolation, doing something you don't want to do, and he doesn't really remember how he got there and why he's doing it. He's very tortured. He's sort of haunted by spirits who may or may not be there. He's sort of like he's addicted to alcohol and other things that sort of warp his perspective. So yeah, that's how I sort of started it. It took me 4 years to make. So it's a long process, but that was having a child as well and getting married and doing all this kind of stuff. So, and having a full-time job. So it took 4 years, but yeah, now it's done and I'm just sort of promoting it really and trying to get it out there.
So by done done, do you mean the story of Conrad and all of the other characters in Scandinavian is completely done, or are we going to get something more?
No, I think it's done. In terms of how I saw the beginning and the end. That's really what I started off with, and I wanted it to be a finished story. Um, I think there's a lot in there that's open to interpretation. Um, but I've already started thinking of the next thing I want to do, which is nothing related to this at all. It's a totally different story. Um, so yeah, it's just a standalone. So it's about 4.5 hours in total. It's a standalone story.
So, what made you decide to tell this as an audio drama as opposed to like, well, first off, let me back up. Tell me, what is the difference to you between a podcast and an audio drama?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think a lot of people have different answers, and some people get quite annoyed about it as well. Like I've told people about it before, and some people have got angry. They're like, "Oh, it's not this, it's something else." And I originally called it an audio book because I hadn't really heard the term sort of audio drama, and even if I had, I didn't see it as being that wildly different from an audio book. But I do get the difference now. Like an audio book is just a narrator, maybe one or two narrators, and they're just reading a book normally, and you're just maybe they'll do voices, but it'll be really subtle, the characterization. It'll pretty much just be in their own voice. And I mean, this definitely isn't a podcast because in my head, a podcast is like we're doing now. It's more conversational. It's not a story. It's more informative. Um, and so an audio drama, a subcategory of that would be something that's multicast. But this is a bit further in that I tried to make it immersive, and that's a word I really like because I think, there's a soundscape to it. I particularly like the sound of rain and the sound of thunder, on like glass. Like it really does something to me. I just love it. So that I made that a theme of this story as well. There's a storm constantly going through it. So I think if you're listening to it and you've got your eyes closed, it sort of teleports you somewhere else subconsciously, really. It makes it quite relaxing in a way, that sound. So it's got a soundscape and it's got a lot of music, like I said as well. So it's kind of hard to define it, and also in terms of length, because a typical audiobook, if it's a novel, that could be easily 10, 11, 12 hours.
Right,
This
right.
is 4.5, so it's quite short in terms of that, but it's not, it's long in terms of if it was a film, that'd be a really long film to sit there for 4.5 hours. So it's hard to define it. But I guess I would say audio drama, as a short answer.
And I would completely agree with that. I can't tell you the difference really between a podcast and an audio drama, but it's more for me at least, it's more of a feeling. Um, I think what you said about, a podcast being more conversational, definitely. Um, However, I do listen to a few so-called podcasts that are, they're telling these stories, but I wouldn't consider those audio dramas at all. It's almost like your work, Scandinavian, is more like what you would hear in like a 30s radio play, or even like going further on into the 60s, they have these Twilight Zones. My mom had these cassette tapes of these types of audio dramas with the whole soundscape going on while they're
Yeah.
telling a story in it, and Scandinavian feels like that. So, yeah, but podcasts and audio dramas. Um, it also brings me to the next question of, you could have made this into a book or a screenplay, but I'm assuming that since you're musically inclined, that you wanted to keep it audio only, and I do
Yeah.
appreciate that.
No, that's interesting. People do ask me that for some people like to listen to audio and read the text at the same time. I think that's quite a common, well, maybe not common, but some people do like that. And people have said, oh, I'm not really into audio, but I'm really into books. So like send me the book version. I'm like, it's not a book. I didn't design it to be a book. I personally think if you read it, it would be pretty terrible. Well, not terrible, but it's not the same. I mean, I would have written it totally differently if that was the intention. But I think you lose so much story if you don't have the soundtrack. So that's why I've not bothered trying to transcribe it or that trying to make a novel out of it. It's not really where I'm sort of skilled or interested as well. So, and then the thing is, if you make a book, then you've got two things to try and sell to do different audiences. So
Right,
it's just
right.
making things harder for yourself. It's like, well, let's just focus on this first, and see how that goes. But yeah, maybe one day. I don't know.
One day. I do love listening to stories. Reading is one thing. So yeah, I agree with what you say. Reading is one thing, but I definitely wouldn't have felt the same if I had read it rather than listened to it.
Yeah.
I mean, from the very beginning, the wind noises for me, that's what it is. Wind noises, and then a story is really good if you can hear that first episode, you hear Conrad and his guests drinking, and you hear the gulping noises, and it's like, ooh, it just it just gets into your bones. It's a totally different different feeling.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, something like that. I mean, that bit in particular has annoyed people in the past, but because it's quite repetitive. But the point of that is that it's supposed to be repetitive to show you a period of time and to show you that they're just monotonously drinking, and the night's going on. And it's hard to do that in sort of 10 seconds, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but yeah, I personally liked it. I had a challenge as well of like mastering it. It's I think some people still do say that, maybe the soundscape's too loud for them, maybe the music's too loud for them. I spent so long trying to master it and get the levels accurate because I didn't want the soundscape or the music to be buried, but also it's so tempting to make them overwhelming, so you can't hear the dialogue. Um, so yeah, I could only do it to my own ear. So I got it how I like it, and I think it's just a matter of taste. But yeah, I'm glad you like that bit.
I thought the audio was perfect. I have no nothing to say otherwise. It was perfect to my ear, and I didn't even use headphones. I was listening to it through a speaker. So
Okay,
even that, it sounded really, really good.
cool.
Do you think that audio offers something more and something unique than something visual that you wouldn't get just watching it?
Yeah, definitely, and I think all forms do. I think when you're reading something, I think your imagination is much more engaged, and I think that's why people like reading because they're sort of they create this story in their own head and they often take it in a totally different path. And so you actually have a lot of subconscious creativity. If you're watching a film, obviously you tend not to do that, but you might look at subtext a bit more, or the performance, the subtext of a performance, whereas this is somewhere in the middle, I think. So I think, yeah, it's really valid. And I like the fact that I did it in 20-minute chunks because I think that's a good amount of time if people are commuting or they
Yes.
want a little bit of a story each day, before bed or whatever, however you want to listen to it. If you're washing up or something. So it's short little stories that are all kind of connected. Um, and for me, I think the repetition of listening to something is very important as well. And I think that affords you the ability to do that with audio that you can I mean, there's certain things that I just listen to over and over and over and over again. Um, and I'm not saying this is that, but that's my aim. I would want people to listen to it multiple times. I think you can get that out of it as well.
And I think I will listen to it multiple times actually, because now I do want to use headphones. And on the 20-minute thing, I think that was perfect too.
Yeah,
Half of the time I was listening on a treadmill, and I'll go either for 40 minutes or an hour. So those little 20-minute snippets were perfect timing. But I do agree that if anyone out there has, just a little bit of time, then that's a really good starting point. Sometimes if a story is too long, I will lose my place, especially if it takes time between when I listen to it first and the next time. I
yeah,
won't remember what happens, but it's almost as if these were like little chapters.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I do appreciate that.
yeah. Like running as well. I started running like a year or so ago, and that's a really good amount of time to run,
Hmm.
20 minutes, and so that people could use it in that context as well. I think that it would sort of, I don't know about you, but listening to something when I'm running really helps me turn the sort of pain off, or like
Forget that I'm running.
it's like, oh no, this is good, I'm doing it.
Yes.
I'm sort of not thinking about it.
So Scandinavian blends this myth and memory and this psychological tension. How were you able to balance all of those elements while still like continuing on the story?
Yeah, it's difficult, and I don't know if I nailed it. I think you can you can dwell on things for too long, and you can be too much of a perfectionist, and you can worry about those things. I think again that comes back to the 20 minutes. I wanted to have a sort of beginning, a middle, and an end in each 20 minutes, and then have an overall sort of arch. I had there's only a small amount of characters in it as well, so it's about right, give them their bit of the story, and now this bit, because you don't want too much going on where you kind of forget everything. It's kind of set over a long period of time as well, so it's there was juggling that, um, and the fact that I do all the voices as well, apart from Nora, the female character, so I had to make that hopefully as different as possible within each voice, because otherwise that gets confusing as like, hang on, you sound like that other, that other character. Um, so yeah, it's difficult to balance it. I think I don't know really. I think anything that's got a lot of tension in it can naturally be a bit slower as well. Like it's I think I try to combine longer dialogue sections with kind of shorter little action sequences to help with pace. And again, 4.5 hours, it is long. Like I didn't want people to get bored. Um, so I tried to condense the story as much as I can as well. And with audio, again, there's little shortcuts to help you do that. But I tried as hard as I could to sort of balance it.
Without giving too much away, because I do want people to listen to it, can you give a brief description of the story of Scandinavian and what listeners should expect, what we should expect when we're listening to it?
Yeah, sure. So there's two big story arcs really. So the first one is a guy called Conrad who lives in the middle of Scandinavia. He lives in an ancient windmill. Like I said, there's this constant storm going on, and he's going out of his mind. He's severely dependent on alcohol and other things as well. So that doesn't help with his sort of mental state. He opens the door and finds these murdered bodies. He doesn't know who they are, but it's just his job to dispose of them so that um, if they're disposed of, there's no crime. If there's no evidence of a body, then you can't, there's no crime committed, essentially. So that's why he's in the middle of nowhere, so it can not be traced. And if it is traced, it will go to him. So he's doing this, he's hearing voices, and he's trying to sort of figure out who he is and why he's there. So he does secret sort of dissections on these corpses to try and find clues. And that in of itself, like, is more harrowing for him because he's on his own, he's cutting these bodies up, he's hearing things. So that's sort of one story arc. And then the other one is a political kind of story, really, of an English politician. You find out in the first bit that this guy has killed himself, and he ends up on Conrad's autopsy slab. So that's the kind of how the two stories are linked together, and you kind of slowly realize who this politician is. He's got a brother as well, which he kind of hides because his brother is a bit of a delinquent. He's a drug addict. He's bohemian, you know. He wants to be a musician, an artist, but he's sort of a bit of a bum, and his political brother is very embarrassed of his exploits. Um, so it's about their relationship as well, and I think that's a really good thing. Like I tried to make quite a lot of that relationship. That I think the younger brother is feels like he's not worthy. You know, he's on this self-destructive path, and he looks to his older brother, who's like almost sort of prime minister, you know, material, kind of almost leading the country. So that makes him feel very inadequate. And it's a lot of it is to do with their interaction as well. But that's just to sum it up really in a sort of nutshell.
Has any of this story been drawn from real life, be it yours
Yeah,
or
yeah,
someone else's?
yeah. No, I think so. I mean, you know, I've got an older brother who's very successful in his field, and we don't have quite the hateful relationship that these characters do. But that was probably a starting point. Um, you know, like I said, come from sort of this creative background. So I think being able to feed that frustration into the younger character, and how he's, you know, determined to kind of do this thing, but gets wayward, you know, and struggles. Um, so yeah, there's certainly elements of sort of real life in it as well, which was good.
So I too have an older brother, and he is a musician like yourself. So I think this part of my podcast here he might want to listen to. Can you tell me about these like specific tools or software that you use to create this audio drama?
Yeah, yeah. So I use Studio One, which is Presonus, which is actually, I think it's more common in America. You don't tend to get it in England, but I really like it. I mean, I used to use Pro Tools and um, things like that. But this one I really liked. I hadn't worked with sound production in quite a while, so I sort of had to retrain myself sort of 6 or 7 years ago, which was a really enjoyable process. I've basically just got a little synth. I've got guitars. I sing in little bits as well, but try and sort of manipulate that sound to make different instruments. And obviously, the most fun thing for me was the drums, sort of programming all the drum parts in, which I really enjoyed. Um, and it was just fun, really. I think, especially having a young kid, you know, or at first a baby, and you're tired, and everyone's gone to bed, and then you can go in your own little space and just be creative and make some music. And it would often start with like a little synth line. Um, and then just adding and putting drums on, and the amount of times where I was like, "Oh, this is terrible, this is awful," and then something will click and change, and you're like, "Oh, no, it's really good," and really like it, you know. And so that happened a lot. I just having the not the confidence, but just being able to try things with no there's no danger involved. I think being in bands as well, the one of the problems can be that you are part of a group and you all have to agree and like, oh, I didn't like that bass line or whatever, you know, and it gets quite tedious and you can have arguments, and it's so satisfying when you can just do your own thing, you know, let it go off in these directions. But then it's hard because you're so close to something.
Right.
It's then hard to stop. It's hard to know if it's any good. You know, there's loads of bits that were just abandoned. I think I'm quite good at that. Even if I've spent 2 days on something, I'm like, no, hate it, delete, it's gone. and then don't worry about it. I think it's important to know when to do that. Some people they're like, no, I've got this idea. I'm just going to struggle and struggle forever to make it work. Um, but yeah, music was really fun to do.
So you did the music yourself. What about the other ambient noises? So rain, wind, crowds. Did you use like pre-programmed sounds, or did you go out on certain occasions and like with a microphone
A
listen?
combination of the two, really. I licensed a lot of the soundscape, which, it takes a long time because you've got to find the perfect sound. You've got to pay for
Yes.
licensing on top of that. But it's not practical always to get thunder, for example. I mean, I couldn't just wait until there's a thunderstorm and time because we don't get that really here. So it's a combination of the two, but that's fun as well to sort of piece together these sounds in a to sort of have this jigsaw and then you know put your own voice on top of stuff as well. It sort of amplifies the feeling behind it and the meaning, and it is fun to do. Just makes it feel more alive.
So how do you, in this audio only story, how do you keep the tension alive? Because some people might find it hard when you don't physically see something. I, I don't have a problem visualizing, but some people might. So how do you keep the tension and all of the scares and drama alive in just audio?
Yeah, I think not to reveal too much, and be a bit restrained, sorry, and try and let the thing sort of breathe and have its own life. Again, the danger is to cram too much in, is to have all these ideas and like, oh, you know, if you have too much sort of action, um, it can be a bit much as well. So it's balancing. There's a bit in it that I really like, that I'm really proud of towards the end, where it opens the episode and all it is a soundscape for like 5 minutes. So it's just basically the alarm clock goes off. Um, he has a shower, him having breakfast, he gets dressed, he walks down the hall, he goes outside, he opens an umbrella, there's rain, that's like 5 minutes really of just no talking at all. And I personally think that really helped to build attention because you don't know who this person is um until it's revealed, and you do have to be engaged with it. Um and then you find out who they are and where they're going to. And I think that things like that help to build tension.
Why did you choose to make Scandinavian a one-time purchase kind of deal rather than, releasing an episode a week or so? Was there any like reasoning behind that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think this comes back to being a musician. And when I started this, it was as a hobby. It was as a bit of fun. It's to sort of get me through COVID. But then I got more and more proud of it, and I thought, no, I think this is good. I think this is worthy of something. It shouldn't just be a hobby. Um, I did initially release them uh, by episode because it was taking me so long to make. I thought, like Dickens used to do, he'd write a chapter and he'd publish that, and he
Right.
did all his books like that. So I thought, oh, that's maybe good. Um, and then it was distributed on all the major channels. Um, but they are not kind to independent creators. In terms of just being financially, economically viable, there's no point for me to put them on there. And I get asked a lot, like, why isn't it on Spotify? Why isn't it on Apple Podcasts? Because I just wouldn't make anything from it. And I've come to the point in my life where I'm like, I've made this product that I'm very proud of, that I feel that it has potential to make money, and not huge amounts of money. And it's definitely not all about the money. But I think if you have something that you've made and you can turn that into a small business, then you should. And that's great, and I think just for, and I don't want to slag off Spotify because I have Spotify, I use it, I think for major artists it's great. For people who are just starting, if you have millions and millions of streams, that doesn't generate you much income, like hundreds of pounds for millions. So it's just not viable. And you have to do all the work still. You still have to promote it, you still have to get it out there, but you're not making any, you're not seeing any rewards from that at all. So like, and I've been back and forth with it, and I was like, well, I could make it as an independent production. Um, it's only available through my own website. Um, and then yeah, why not? Why not try and do it as a small business rather than, it's not a mainstream product. It wouldn't work for the mainstream. I don't pretend that it would be. But I think there are people out there who would genuinely love it and pay a small amount to have it. Also, the good thing is, like if you buy it, you can download it and then it's yours. You've got the files forever.
Yes.
Can't do that on Spotify. You can't own the thing. And I think whereas yeah, it is still digital media, that it's not physical, but you do get to keep it. And I think that's another reason why I want more of the control to on how it's distributed.
So
Um,
speaking of physical media, have you thought of releasing like a special release, I don't know, cassette or a CD or something? Or do you want to just keep it? I know there's a cost involved with doing that, but
yeah,
you never know.
no, I mean, I would love it to be like on vinyl, but I think it's too big, and also the cost involved, doesn't make sense at the minute. But um, ultimately, I would love to consider something like that, but it'd be way, way down the line. I think it needs to sort of prove itself first that it can generate some money, and excuse me, that there is a sort of fan base there for it. Because there's no point doing all that and buying stock, and then you're like, oh,
Right,
how do I get
right.
rid of all this sort of stuff? Also, the reason that doesn't occur to me is that I don't even have a DVD player anymore. Like I just don't have that. Definitely don't have a CD player. Not even in computers and stuff. So it's never in my head to be like, oh yeah.
You
Um,
know, you say that, and I'm the same way. It's like I'm a huge horror buff, obviously.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't physically have a VCR right now, but
yeah,
I have a ton of VHS tapes just because someday I will go out and purchase one.
yeah,
So I mean, it's still there. There's still a little bit of want for that physical media, even if you can't actually use it. I
yeah,
still
yeah,
like to hold an actual item. So in
yeah,
in the future, because there's still the costs and all the things you've already mentioned, but in the future,
yeah.
keep it in mind because I would purchase it.
Great. Yeah, no, it's definitely something that it'd be really, really cool. But I would have to have the money to get someone to design it, I think, because I think that
Right.
would be beyond my capabilities. And then see what it would be. But yeah, it would be cool to have something like that.
So let's pretend that I didn't listen to Scandinavian. Convince me, tell me why I should listen to it.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, this is where I sort of fall down really because I'm not good at stuff like that, and I like and I try to, and I know I need to, um, but it always comes across badly. Yeah, so
Do your best. Do your best.
yeah,
I
no, no,
believe in
I
you.
will. No, I'm
You
quite
can
tempted,
do it.
but I think the 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 biggest sort of selling point for me, the thing I like most about it is the immersive nature of it is that it can take you to somewhere else, that you can listen to it if you're doing something mundane and it will make that enjoyable. Um, but I think, I'm really proud of it. I think it's got really good music in it that I'm really proud of. I think the music is a sort of character of itself as well. I think that brings a lot. I think it's very interesting that it has a soundscape, but it still has a narrator. You know, there's parts where a narrator comes through. Again, that's like a storytelling device where I could speed things up or transfer scenes or, you know, explain nuances. So it's got the best of all worlds, I think, really, in that you are being sort of read a story essentially, but there's a lot of acting in it as well, and there's a lot of music and atmosphere. Um, so that's why really. I mean, I think it's well designed. I think that the audio production is at a very high level, and I think
Yes.
that's something that people consistently say that they can tell how much time I've spent on it. And I think that there was a danger. There's a danger if I was commissioned to make this, and somebody says, right, you got to make this series, you've got 5 months. I think that's when you start cutting corners and you panic and you're like, oh, I've got to get this
Yes.
done, you know, and and you don't worry about story. I think when you don't have those pressures, yeah, it took me 4 years, but I think that translates into quality,
Right.
and that's consistently what the feedback is, that you can feel that it's very highly produced, you know, a very good quality, even if you don't like the story or whatnot. So, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Those are all very good points. I am convinced. But I think you could also, say that you're supporting an indie artist, you're
Yeah,
supporting an indie horror artist. And I think that projects like this are, I think, vastly underappreciated, especially coming from like indie people in general. They really, especially in the horror community, they really keep the genre alive and therefore keep other genres alive too. I don't know specifically on audio only formats, but at least for movies, it's like every time that there's a recession, every time, the film industry is like tanking, horror is there to prop it right up, and especially indie horror people. Um,
yeah.
so you can use that point too. You're supporting an indie
Yeah,
artist.
definitely. Thank you. No, I do have that in my head, and then it's something that I forget. But yeah, I think, and obviously not just me, but yeah, so many people who make stuff independently, and the one common thing is that you can't get more passionate than people who
Yes.
do, regardless of the quality of material or whatever. But I think it's always done because you love it, you know, and
Yes.
that comes across. And that, you know, problem with film and TV and stuff is that people who commission it is a business. It has to make money. So, you know, I know loads of people in loads of different forms of media and entertainment who are producers and executive producers and things like that. And they have tough times because it's like if something does well, then it's like everyone just wants to make 10, 20 versions of that.
Yes.
And so then it becomes boring. You look at Marvel thing. Again, I'm nothing against that. It's not really my thing, but it's like, oh God, this has made loads of money. Let's make more. Let's make more, more,
Yeah.
more, more. And it gets to a point where it kills itself because it's like, oh, it's so boring now. I
Yes.
can't, you know, it's so just about toys and merchandising and just like it's lost all its heart. I mean, like the new Superman thing, I've not, I won't go and see it. I'm not very interested in seeing it, but it just looks it looks terrible. It just looks very cartoony, and I don't know if that's the point or they want that. But I just sort of looked a bit at the trailer, and I'm like, why is it sort of all jokey and you know
Yeah.
he sort of rescues a squirrel? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not the best judge of things like that, but yeah, independent creators definitely need to be listened to more and sort of help more and
Yes.
yeah.
And I'll also add on that in a world full of podcasts where everyone has a podcast, me included, this is different. It's not just like we said at the beginning, it's not a podcast. It's
Yeah.
something completely different. It's a whole immersive world with all these dark corners and atmospheric, just everything. It's a whole thing. It is different. It's not something that you would normally listen to.
Mm. Yeah, hopefully. I didn't really intend that to be the case, but that's what came out, and that's what I like. And going back to that, you were saying about early radio dramas, like things like War of the Worlds, um, with Richard Burton. Like I used to listen to that in car journeys when I was a kid, and that's probably where I got quite a lot of inspiration from because that it's a similar thing. It's got a main narrator, it's got actors, it's got music, and it's got a soundscape. And I think I'm not too sure why it's not done more often than it is. It
Right,
definitely is out there. I'm not saying that I invented it or I'm the only one doing it. There's loads of people doing it, and it's always generally very good. Um, but it's not done very often. I could only assume because it costs more. And so if you're commissioning audio and it could be just two people talking, that's going to be a lot cheaper than making music and composing and doing all this kind of stuff. So maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but it's a shame it's not out there more.
right, right. I agree. So, last question here, almost done. Now that the story of Scandinavian is over, where does Albion Byrd go from here?
Cool. Yeah. So basically, I need to think of an economic plan of making it sustainable for me. And there's various things I'm trying in order to make that possible. Like I said, it doesn't need to be. And it certainly won't be a mainstream thing, but it's like just getting it an audience, a small community, a smaller audience. This is why I like Instagram so much because I find it's very easy to sort of interact with people there, and if people like horror, they put it there instantly. I like horror,
Yes,
and that's cool. You don't really often get that with everything. Um, so that's what I'm trying to do next. And then if it is sustainable, I'll do a next thing, which I've got a whole bunch of bullet points of themes and ideas and one-off little lines. I mean, I don't know much about it at the minute, but I think it will be a bit more sci-fi, but sort of horror sci-fi. I like the idea of like it starts off and they're in a group of people in this big spaceship and it's leaving Earth and as Earth's blowing up. Like I sort of want that to be the opening and then it goes back and
that
you
sounds
sort of
cool.
yeah, just the thing of like, oh God, we're all leaving. Like, where are we going? We're just going into space and then the Earth blows. Probably not that original, but just as a starting point, I think that would be an idea. I really like paranormal stuff as well. Like there's a lot of that in this one. So probably more ghost things, more sort of alien things. So I'm not quite sure, but it's quite exciting. And that's why I don't want to continue this because it's like just a blank slate of like, oh, let's just do a whole new thing. So yeah, hopefully that'll happen next year.